Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for our Ask the Expert. So today we're going to have a very interesting conversation with Marlene van der Berg, and she is an occupational therapist. So our topic for today, we are going to speak a bit more on understanding eating disorders, the signs, the causes, and how to support. So let me just share a bit on who Marlene is. So she is an occupational therapist. She has more than 19 years of experience working in the mental health industry. She has worked with clients with acute and chronic mental health conditions, eating disorders, addictions, and also personality disorders. She is a therapeutic team manager and a therapist at Akeso, Mentros, and Menro. I hope I'm saying it right. She is a specialist in the eating disorder clinic. She has also hosted outpatient support within the community, which is the Healing Space Wellness. And she is a trained gastro and play therapy with TRE and Ingram practitioner and a yoga teacher. Like, wow. She has a specific interest in group intervention and the holistic healing process. And she's very passionate in supporting her clients to find motivation within themselves to live a full life. So this includes activities that are within the inner and the outer well-being. And she encourages just being authentic and your healthiest self. Hi, Marlene.
Sounds like I get bored a lot, doesn't it? To read those things. It's lovely to be
Not
with
at
you
all.
guys.
Thank you so much. So today we're just gonna get into just the understanding of eating disorders. And before we even start anything, what are eating disorders and how do they affect a person's physical or mental well-being?
I think it's such a good question because I think, well, it's such a complicated answer. I know we
Mm.
have a time limit, but I can speak about this for years. And
Yeah.
eating disorder is really complicated because we very often just think it's about food, it's about weight. We see extremely skinny people and we go, oh, you're
Mm.
anorexic. And we don't really understand that an eating disorder is really a very severe mental health condition that actually presents as you were saying, quite physically. It presents in your relationship with food, your relationship with body,
Mm.
and ultimately your relationship with yourself. So you almost
Mm.
want to see an eating disorder on the same level than a drug addiction or a gambling addiction. We speak about a processing illness where I
Yeah.
cannot deal with my emotions and I cannot deal with what's going on around me. And so I, for a variety of reasons, lean into food behavior that
Okay.
makes me feel better. So it's more than just what you're eating and what you're not eating or how much you
Mm.
weigh. It's really
Mm.
about what is going on in your dynamics and your internal mindset and in your mental well-being.
Mm. Definitely. So from what I'm understanding, it's more of a mental disorder, and it's not only about just how the person looks or what they eat. So that's what I'm
No,
hearing.
absolutely. You're absolutely
Okay.
correct.
All right. So, like you said, a lot of people genuinely think that eating disorders just come on food, that
Yeah.
my loved one has been eating, and the next thing she's vomiting or he's vomiting, and the person is just losing weight. And we have that misconception that this person doesn't want to eat, or they're trying not to look a
Yeah.
certain way. So I
Yeah.
think that's like one of the myths that we kind of deal with within our communities as well.
Absolutely, you're so right. And I think that we speak about a hidden illness, an unspoken illness. Clients
Mm.
even come into the clinic, families bring their loved ones into the clinic. And when we say
Yeah.
to them, it's not about the food, the parents are
Mm.
like, what is she weighing? What is the weight? We go like, we don't want to speak to you about the weight, but we want
Mm.
to speak to you about the childhood trauma. And we want to
Yeah.
speak to you about the dynamics in the family. And we want to speak to
Mm.
you about the pressure. Then people are quite hesitant because I think that
Yeah.
eating disorders is really quite silent in hiding the deeper issues and the symptoms.
Yeah.
And we want to
Mm.
believe that it's literally like it's about vanity and about looking a certain way. Or I'm so glad that
Yeah.
you're bringing up the purging, because it's a part that we're not speaking of, is that
Yeah.
it's not that someone is throwing up because they want to lose weight. They're throwing
Mm.
up because there's so much emotional turmoil in them that they cannot hold, and they just want to release
Mm.
it. Binge eating. How in South Africa have we normalized overeating? But there's people that eat
Yeah.
for emotional containment, and they can't stop themselves because they have
Mm.
this big need for comfort and support, and they get that through food. So it's actually quite sad when we get family members or public that goes, oh, but if she just eats, or if she just
Yeah.
stops throwing up, because then we
True.
are missing a whole world of emotional hurt that these
Yeah.
individuals are carrying that no one is looking at.
That's true. And from what I can hear, basically, it's an holistic mental health illness, and the signs are literally what the person goes through. So what triggers them is their spaces, the whole dynamic. So right now, I'm trying to support a loved one, or I don't know whether I have an eating disorder. What are the early signs I could see that perhaps I might have an eating disorder?
Yeah, I think that I think that we often wait for the weight to drop or to increase. That's too
Yeah.
late. You want
Yeah.
to look for signs and
Mm.
symptoms that is almost odd, weird food behavior. People that suddenly want to eat secretly. People that suddenly cook and they cook all of the food, but then they don't eat it themselves. They hand it out. Secretive behavior, wrappers in the bins that's not supposed to be in the bins. A family
Mm.
member that would want to say, "No, I've eaten already. Thank you. I don't want." Um, it's a very
Yeah.
deceitful illness. It's a very sneaky illness because it hides the
Mm.
behavior so well. So any of that abnormal behavior, a family member that doesn't want to eat with, a family member that suddenly has an increase in exercise regime, and like suddenly they're running excessively
Yeah.
and they um I don't know how well familiar the listeners are with orthorexia, which is the obsession with health and health food. But a lot of eating disorders
Mm.
actually start as I want to be healthy. Yeah, we're sitting in the beginning of the year, and my New Year's resolution is
Yeah.
to lose weight and be
Yes,
healthy
yes.
and run a marathon. But then
Yeah.
that so quickly goes obsessive and toxic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that behavior that tips that point where we maybe think, oh, they're on a health kick. We would be suspicious, especially if there's
Yeah.
additional emotional symptoms like aggression, withdrawal, not participating in the things that they used to do, drop in marks, a drop in work performance. So if you kind of see that the food and the exercise is getting weird and life and mood is
Mm.
getting a little bit low, then we want to ask some
Yeah.
questions.
Okay. That is a very interesting science because, like you said, a lot of us just think when somebody's just like working out, trying to, New Year's resolution, more so especially now, we find ourselves just going through that. Even social media is banging on how I looked back in 2016, how I look now, and the trends that we find at gyms, pretty brands, and there's that culture of how we're supposed to eat. So, can I just ask, within that, how do you feel social media, gym trades, beauty trades, how do they basically contribute to eating disorders?
I like that you use the word contribute because I think a lot of people think that they cause eating disorders. They don't cause eating disorders, but they exacerbate eating disorders. You know, let's take a 15-year-old that dad is working all the time, dad is on the phone all the time, dad is never present. Mom is there, but mom is super overprotective. Mom has her own eating disorder issues. Maybe she's only giving health food. This child is
Yeah.
feeling quite lost in the family. Now I look on social media and I see, oh, that girl is exercising and she's doing well and she's having a beautiful life. And I mimic that. And I see, oh,
Yeah.
this one is eating that. And I think that if I just do this, my dad will love me. If I just do this, my mom will not be this anxious. I meet a friend
Mm.
in school and that friend is like, no, I'm not eating lunch. That's like so not cool. I don't know what the new name
Yeah.
for kids is, but like my word is still cool, like not cool. And they mimic
Yeah.
them. I think that
Yeah.
I get very upset about gyms. I think gyms are
Yeah.
very toxic and unhealthy, especially for our younger population, where we
Mm.
are just allowing them in. And then you see a 13-year-old on a treadmill and you're like, you should go
True.
out and play soccer. Um, So I don't
Yeah.
think they're not the cause, but they take a wounded and fragile, vulnerable individual and they're opening up a
Mm.
door for them into a
Mm.
very
Mm.
unhealthy and obsessive world.
Yeah, yeah. And you're pointing out something that's very cautioning because of a lot of us, when you're not doing anything, the first thing you're just holding on to is your social media, you know.
Yeah. Mm,
And what you're pointing out right there is that it's being normalized. And
mm,
at times, if it's being normalized, it does have that negative impact. So that is a great point to actually kind of like also understand that, physical interaction and being, proactive is one of the greatest things to also work on as an individual.
yeah. And I think that, like, let's say normal people without an eating disorder, what's normal? But
Yeah,
we might go on a health kick, we might say like, oh, New Year's resolution, I'm gonna start running, I'm gonna be consistent in yoga,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
will do it. But it won't become
yeah,
obsessive, and we'll still do all of the
mm,
other stuff in our lives. And I mean, let's be honest, most of us after a month or two are gonna be like, okay, well, let's just find a little bit of a balance here, and
yeah.
I'm not gonna kill myself. But I
True.
think when it becomes obsessive and that becomes the only thing that they do, we need to remember that these things initially make us feel good.
Yeah,
Going, like, it's great. I'm going to go to the gym and I feel better. Social media. Oh,
yeah,
it's nice. It's a nice distraction. But
yeah,
ultimately, when these things become, they stop making you feel good and they start to
mm,
become controlling, they start to dictate your behavior, then we
yeah,
are in deep trouble. A child that plays
yeah,
soccer or goes to the gym, maybe, like for fun with a friend, going to do a class, nothing wrong with it. But if I'm spending
yeah,
3 hours in the gym and I'm starting to literally look for TikTok videos about what people eat and what I should
yeah,
eat, then we are stepping in dangerous territory. You
mm,
earlier spoke about the signs and symptoms, and I think that's
yeah,
also specifically for parents.
mm,
If you have a look at the content of your child's social media, it will be very clear that there is obsessive behavior in that, which is another good sign and symptom.
yeah.
Again, not causing it, but definitely opening up a very unhealthy door.
True, true, 100%. I just like how you always keep on saying that it's like it's contributing. We're not saying it's the cause of it. So it's more than one factor that can contribute to an eating disorder.
Yeah. I think that if
Great
people
stuff.
would want to believe that it's that, it's easy. Wouldn't it be
Mm.
easy if we just go, eating disorders is about food? Then I
Yeah,
wouldn't have a job. I would like, it's easy to eat 3 meals and 3 snacks. If it was
yeah,
social media, it would be
yeah.
like, let's just take away the social media. And I think
True,
sometimes
true.
parents and families, we need to remember that an eating disorder is a family illness. We say that
Mm.
an eating disorder is co-created. So everyone in the family contributes. The dad's absenteeism, the mom's issue with her own body, the grandmother
Mm.
maybe passed away, like it's all of
Mm.
these things. And so I think for a lot of families, in our systems of denial, in our
Yeah,
mental
yeah,
stigmatization,
yeah.
I don't want to believe that it's me. I want to believe that it's the
Mm.
school, and I want to believe
Mm.
that it's the friends, and I want to believe that it's the social media.
Mm.
But actually,
Mm.
eating disorders, it's asked a lot of courage of a whole system, family,
Mm.
school, work, life, society at large, is to say, how
Yeah,
are we contributing to young individuals doubting their worth and then making their
mm,
worth based on the wrong thing? It asks
mm.
us to look at ourselves. And I think that's
Yeah.
why it's easier to go, it's social media, than to say, I
Yes,
maybe have a
yes.
part in this.
And that's true, because one thing that we never really want to do as individuals is look within or kind of like seem as if we are contributing to something that we don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're mentioning there as a loved one and someone that is afraid of actually kind of like owning up or opening up to the process that there's a lot that contributes to this. How
Mm.
can I support then my loved one if they have an eating disorder?
Well, I think there's a lot of stages. So let me start with the first stage is that when your child or your loved one or your friend is showing signs of an
Mm.
eating disorder, you can't deal with this on your own. The illness is very strong. So it
Yeah,
is about getting professional help and also then getting the right professional help. It is
yeah,
really important for eating disorder specifically that your psychologist and your psychiatrist and your therapist and your OT and your dietitian is
mm,
ED specialists.
mm,
So that is just there's no shame in asking for help. The sooner we get help,
Yeah.
the better. But families often think that it's a phase, they're going to get through it, I'll help them, and then that doesn't work. So the first
Yeah.
thing is
Yeah.
really, as a family member, to have a open conversation, to say, I love you, to say, oh,
Mm.
don't tell them that you want to take their eating disorders away because they'll fight you.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
say, this something's not okay. Let's go and get help. I see that you are struggling. Let's go and get help
Mm.
as a start. The second part is really that families is part of that process and that they own their stuff. I had a dad a while back that said, oh, but image is important to me and it's important that my daughters look well, but they know I don't mean it like that. And we go,
Yeah.
no, actually, please stop and say, hey, image is important to me, and I realize that must have had an effect on you. So I think that the more open family members and friends are about this, and can say, I know I've got a part in this. I know that how we speak about exercise is not good. I know that the fact that we don't speak about the anxiety in the family is unhelpful. So that, I think, would be the second part in supporting. Then
Okay.
obviously, if a client is in treatment or getting help, then there might also just need to be practical support. Let's help you with food and check that you're eating and all of that stuff. So I
Yeah.
always say in eating disorder treatment, it's like pushing two wheelbarrows. So for us
Yes.
that still know how to push wheelbarrows, we know that pushing wheelbarrows are very difficult, but we need to manage the
Exactly.
food and the normal behavior and get the food and
Mm.
the exercise stuff right. But the other
Yeah.
wheelbarrow is really the therapy. So we would ask families to support both wheelbarrows.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the balance. And one of the things that perhaps they're not mentioned a whole lot is the relapses. So with you saying that we have to balance the wheelbarrows, there has to be some form of balance. And with that support, it will allow a loved one to actually get to a better mental state and actually
Yeah.
open up to the process as well.
Yeah. And I think it's so good that you're mentioning relapses because pushing two wheelbarrows is literally impossible. And then you
Yeah.
also need to deal with life. So actually there's a third
Mm.
wheelbarrow. You might have to push that
Yeah.
with your toe.
Mhm.
So relapses, it's like a lot of mental illnesses. Eating disorders is not something that we fix. It's not something that we have and we get over. It's something that
Yeah.
we learn to live with. We learn to manage it.
Mm.
We want to be in recovery. So we want to,
Yeah.
like in addiction, we want to be clean. We don't want to
Yeah.
act out on our behaviors. But we need to always remember that our unhelpful relationship with food or our bodies will be there. And so it's a
Yeah.
constant management of that. And I think that people are very against relapse. But also, if
Yeah.
you work
Yeah.
in mental health, you know that mental illness is cyclical. And when bad
Yeah.
things happen, things are going to pop up again. I'm going to go back to some of my old behavior. So, how can we destigmatize that and normalize that? And exactly what you're saying is start to live a life of balancing the two and understanding
Mm.
when the food stuff is not going well, what's going on in my
Mm.
emotional life? How can I
Mm.
heal that? What can I do? Like always pushing those two sides because
Mm.
relapse is going to happen. It's just how
Yeah.
do we handle relapse and how do we compassionately approach relapse rather than go, oh my word, there you go again, you don't have
Yeah.
enough self-discipline to get over this thing, you're such a bad person, which is
And
not
I
the truth.
feel that from what I can hear, there's like that always that negative connotation to basically how the person would feel, where ultimately the whole aim is to be open and actually welcoming to the process itself. So that's what I'm hearing a whole lot of.
Yeah.
So right now, what I do want to get to understand a bit is how do mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, how do they link to eating disorders?
Little bit chicken and egg. So
Okay.
on the one side, a person can be quite depressed or often actually a little bit more anxiety. So let's rather go with anxiety. Eating disorders have a very big anxiety component to it. So let's say, for example, this
Okay.
individual has always been quite anxious and always struggled to deal. Maybe there was a trauma of some sort of nature. And so the anxiety is really a lot. So it's an
Mm.
overwhelming amount of information and emotions to deal with. I don't want to deal with this. So I want to numb. I want
Mm.
to numb the anxiety. I want to get rid of the anxiety. What better way to get rid of the
Mm.
anxiety is to be in control, to have something that
Yes.
I can sort out. I know all of us have been hungry before. If I'm hungry, then it is, how do I get to the nearest garage and get a packet of chips because I will kill someone on my way, like I'm so hungry, I need to eat right now. So if I'm
Yeah.
hungry, for example, I'm obsessed with my hunger. I don't have to worry about my trauma. I don't have to think about my anxiety. So the first part is that the other mental illness, the comorbid mental illness, the anxiety or the depression is there. And then we use the eating disorder to cope with it, to self-medicate it, to soothe it.
Yeah. Mm.
Alternatively, for whatever reason, trauma, a lot of dynamics and psychodynamics, so the deeper inner workings of a family system, maybe
Yeah.
maybe there was no space for me in a big family and I just wanted to disappear. Or maybe it was a very volatile family and the only thing that I could do was to eat. And I just became a binge eater and I overate.
Mm.
But then
Mm.
because of my because of my eating disorder and my malnourishment, I'm going to start to
Mm.
become more anxious. I might become depressed. You know, the more I'm into my eating disorder and into my active addiction, the less I'm functioning, the less I see my friends. And so anxiety can have an eating disorder as a remedy, or an eating disorder can almost cause the symptom of anxiety and depression in my life. So there's a big correlation. Eating disorders is literally to the core a trauma illness. So there's a big
Yeah.
link. We know that there's a big link between OCD or obsessive behavior. And
Okay.
because I mean, an eating disorder is quite obsessive. So an eating disorder is really quite in the middle of all of these, like the stangle of mental illnesses. You cannot, onlosmakend is the Afrikaans word. You cannot
Yeah.
extract an eating disorder from all of the other mental illnesses that is going around.
100%. This just gives a big insight on actually an eating disorder because it does seem that it's there, but it's just contributed by a whole lot. It's that it's a constant ball of, constant inner confliction out as well. So wow, this is quite insightful. So one of the things I do want to know, we mentioned getting that balance. We spoke about therapy. What treatments are available to those that want to get recovery?
Mm, mm. Um, so we're going to look at outpatient and inpatient care. So outpatient care, you might see a dietitian. Again, I cannot state this enough. It is really important to have an ED, a dietitian, an eating disorder. It's a different understanding. And so we need specialists,
Yeah.
unfortunately for this, because we don't want to help the person in the wrong way. So the dietitian is often very helpful, a
Yes.
therapist, whether that's a psychologist or a counselor or an occupational therapist or social worker, someone that has eating disorder expertise would really be ideal. Some clients see psychiatrists, so that's also part of that. Some clients even see GPs, general
Mm.
practitioners, if there's a lot of physical issues around a loss of weight or a gain of weight. So that's also there. But really you want to look at your dietitian and your therapist, whichever that is. So that's outpatient care. And outpatient care is a very good place to start. What often happens in outpatient
Okay.
care is that it works for a little bit and you can go on and you can be all right. Or actually the eating disorder becomes worse and then you would
Mm.
need an inpatient admission. And so an inpatient
Oh,
admission almost offers you a
okay.
platform of learning. You know, it's very difficult. You're sitting with your therapist and you say to your therapist, I promise I'm going to eat my 3 snacks. I promise, I promise. You go home
Yeah.
and you sit there and your eating disorder is so loud and it's saying, don't eat the snack. Your therapist knows nothing. The snack is not going to help me. So what inpatient treatment does is we provide a
Mm.
platform where you can very safely shift and change behaviors. We make it easy to push the wheelbarrow. We just take that and we go, we'll push the wheelbarrow for you.
Okay.
Will help you to work a little bit deeper. And that often
Yeah.
gives clients a very, very good platform, a good basis, a good understanding, and a little bit of a taste of recovery experience in how it would be to balance this. And then if they then go
Mm.
back to their outpatient therapy, they have more knowledge, more skills. They trust themselves a little bit more. The ED voice, we speak about an eating disorder voice in your head, is a little bit softer. So you don't have to act on it so much. So that's often the option in
Mm.
outpatient care, especially if you've been in treatment. Then there's also aftercare groups and support groups, which is really, really lovely.
Yes.
But I think if a family member
Mm.
sees that a loved one is stuck or you yourself is feeling really, really stuck, and you've tried everything and you can't get out of it, please, there is facilities like ours, and others that will help and say, let's just give you that baseline. Let's get you back to zero so that you can then take it
Yeah.
from there. And so an admission is really, research really encourages us admissions quite early on in the process.
100%. So from what I can get, you do need that professional diagnosis or actually someone to actually support you through this. And while they're supporting you through this, inpatient is also very good because of it allows you to get the basis and the foundations of understanding yourself and at least quieting down that voice. And then after that, the outpatient is just you understanding yourself through the process and then getting further support within a support group, and just having that as well.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yeah, would help a lot.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Of saying it out loud and I don't want to be judged, what would you say to me?
You're not alone. You're
Mm,
not alone. This illness is telling you that you are not worthy. This illness tells you that there's no hope. This illness tells you that the only way that people will accept you is if you look different, if you act different,
mm,
if you're perfect, if you're in control. Um, we put our clients hair up in a messy bun in the first
yeah.
day that they are here, and we say you can just be yourself, you can be messy, there is so much help available for you, there's so much love. It's a very difficult field to work in, and so for us that work in this field, we do it because we know people can get better, and so that's really my message is don't let this illness tell you that you can't, don't let this illness tell you that this is the life that you are supposed to live.
Mm,
Hear the message and saying there's a better life out there for you, and we can help you. And all that you need to do is take the first step. And it's going to be tough. You're going to have to give up your control, but it's
yeah.
more than just how you look. And we can hear you. We can understand you. Please just take the support.
That is a very powerful thing because there isn't any much safe spaces to actually
Yeah.
open up and be open and vulnerable. So to have you say that, you're welcome. Come as messy as you are. You're not supposed to have it all together. We welcome you. We want to help you, and that in itself says a whole lot. So one of the things that perhaps we could just before we close off, what are the common myths that you feel that a lot of people are misunderstanding, or what are we not necessarily not I want to say understanding, but getting about supporting our loved ones with mental health illnesses?
Well, I think we've spoken about the big one. The big one is probably it's just about the food.
Yeah.
That's a big myth. I think a big myth is that this is just a phase. I think
Yeah.
another big myth is that she's just self-disciplined. She's just working very hard. This is how my child is. My child is a performer. Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I think that's a big myth. I think the other thing that I mean, it's almost painful for me to, as a therapist, to hear, when people have a bad day and they go like, "Oh my God, I'm so traumatized about this day," and I
Yeah.
go, "Oh, it's so dismissive of people that really have trauma." In the same
Yeah.
way, we look at people walking. I live in Cape Town, so lots of people on the beaches, and we go, "Oh, she's so anorexic," or like, "Oh, I've had a
Yeah.
binge." That language is
Yeah.
so unhelpful. So I think that also. I really want people to be a little bit more sensitive and aware of what they say. The big myth is that it's about the
Mhm.
body, when actually, if we
Yeah.
were to open up that person's little body and we look into the soul, if we open up that person's massive lunchbox that we are judging for how much she's eating, we are going to find a lot of pain inside that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I would really encourage people to refrain from being insensitive and saying it's
Mhm.
just a run, or look at how anorexic she is. You know that saying, I'm terrible with saying, I always butcher it, but like be kind to people, it must
Yeah.
be the worst day that they ever have, or something along that line.
Yeah.
That's the truth with
Mhm.
eating disorder patients, is that we think that it's just about their behavior, but they are fighting very hard and struggling very hard. So it's a myth that they can just
Yeah.
sort that out.
100%. I really do appreciate how you're closing it off, and that can we be mindful? Can we be welcoming to others, and also understand that it's not about how we look. We all fighting different battles, and being kind is not anything that's bad. It just allows the next person to be okay within themselves as well. So I really appreciate that. So I think we've come to the end of our young talk. I really do appreciate your time, and I do believe that if ever anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to post them on our group, and we will get to answer them as best as we can, and you will also answer those as well for us. I really do appreciate your time, and thank you so much for today.
Oh, thank you, Inati, for making up the space. You spoke about safe spaces, and talks like this is part of creating
Yes,
safe spaces for people. So, yes, we at
yes,
Montrose Manor, absolutely, we're here to support and help. But thank you also for, we've got a long relationship with SADAG. So, thank you also creating that
yes.
safe space for people. It was an honor.
Thank you so much. Okay.